No plan survives contact with reality. So why do I even need one? All right, well, welcome to the Throw the Boss Out podcast with Joe Leach and Jim Suhan once again. There's an episode number to this one, but I'm not really paying too much attention. Or do we have a number for it?
I do guarantee this will be one of the 10 best podcasts we've ever done together.
Up to date, anyway. Yes, to date, anyway. So I think we're talking episode 6 is what I've just been told. So I'm going to trust that number. Episode 6, welcome. We're going to talk about business plans, but I have some very interesting news for everybody listening and for Jim that I've figured out. And it goes to the whole idea that people are always told that businesses never survive, or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Such a high percentage of businesses never survive 5 years. And there's some numbers that say 20% fail in the first year and 50% fail in the fifth year. And that's always kind of driven me a bit crazy, because why do you want to discourage people? Now, if it's real, I'm all for reality, but it's not real. I learned that it's not real. It's statistics. Do you remember what Mark Twain said about statistics?
Yes, and as a sports writer living in the age of advanced analytics, I rely on that Mark Twain saying all the time.
Right. Go ahead and say it. I just want you to say it. I hope we have the same quote.
There are lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Exactly. So the one thing about statistics that you never know is how has it been sliced and diced? What does it include? What doesn't it include? Where did I draw the line? Right? I can draw the line on anything. I can add a few more days to a sample. I can do whatever. So this whole business thing, guess what? I have learned that when they talk about business closings, they include when a business is sold, when a business changes names.
Well, I've already changed names 3 times.
When a business merges, it basically just takes into consideration there were employees on this date last year, but there aren't today. That's a business closing.
Weird. That's a terrible way to categorize it.
Well, let's put it in perspective. This makes it even more interesting. Let's say we applied that to employment. People leave their jobs on an average of every 4.4 years.
Wow.
If we figured statistically, we figured unemployment statistically that way, that every time somebody essentially left their job, that they were unemployed, what do you think our unemployment rate would look like?
About 30%.
Right. Nobody would want to go and get a job.
Yep.
And what's the other reality then? When someone loses their job, what do?
Start looking for a new job.
Or they probably just get a new job. And in a lot of cases, they just move. Business people are the same way.
Yeah.
What happens if you start a business and you find out it's just not working and you literally shut it down gracefully, no harm, no foul to anybody, and you start a different business? The government says that was a business failure. So how's that for some perspective this morning?
Sounds like damn lies and statistics.
Yes. So anyway, the reason I wanted to bring that up in this episode is we're talking about business plans. And I think that business plans, we started the show out with a ruckus opening. And the phrase I used was no plan survives contact with reality. That comes from a good friend of mine whose name is Jim McCormick. He's a very underrated business voice in the community. I'm pretty sure you can find him on LinkedIn. He does not have a lot of stuff published, but he's got 10 rules, and one of the rules is no plan survives contact with reality. And it comes from a military. A lot of his stuff is very military oriented. And yet that he's still super encouraged about business, knowing that you can plan and it's not going to turn out anything like you plan. And so people are out there saying, well, I might as well not plan. And today I'm trying to tell everybody, you need to plan because it's going to work, just not how you expect it to.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. If you don't plan, it's probably not going to work out at all. I mean, that might be a little bit too general of a statement, but I would say most businesses that fail didn't have a plan, or they had a very misinformed plan. So we're going to talk today about what are the important things about a business plan. If you look at the SBA site, and the SBA really is a good place to get information. Now, I'm going to be careful not to give out too much information. Let me just see if I can find this real quick. I'm not going to give up too much information as far as I'm against telling people go to this very website, find your data here, find your data there. Do you know why?
No.
Think about it.
Nope, you're going to have to help me.
You're going to go into business.
I'm not thinking well on my feet today.
You have got to be adventurous. You've got to be inquisitive. You've got to be tenacious. And if you're just going to wait for everybody to tell you where to go get everything,
Yeah.
this is training. Like, I'm helping people train here.
You're helping me.
I'm like the personal trainer in the gym. I'm not going to do the push-ups for you.
What if I give you like $20? Would you do all the push-ups for me?
I'll do 2 of the 30 push-ups I'm going to make you do, something like that. We can negotiate. I want to be clear with people. This isn't going to be a podcast where I'm telling you here's where you go and here's how you do this. I just don't think it's very beneficial to you. You need to figure this stuff out yourself. But sometimes I'm going to bring stuff up like the SBA's. I was looking at their site just to get a great outline of how somebody would typically do a business plan. A lot of times people get excited about business plan because it has this really fun stuff in it, like the executive summary, right? Who doesn't want to write an executive summary? And let's face it, when you're going into business, it's exciting. You have these ideas of, how great it's going to be to have my own business and all those things that just get you all excited. And writing an executive summary, and then, the management team, right? Where I'm right at the top, and then I'm going to find other management team members to be part of my management team, and I'm going to put something together. Many of these things are probably going to be useful if you're trying to seek outside funding, if you're trying to get a loan, whatever. But I'm saying for what I'm talking about today, not really necessary. If you're going to do them last. Here are the things that I'm going to talk about today. You got to know your product and service relative to everything. The market, yourself, its competitors, everything. So you got to know your product or service very well. You need to do market research. You need to know, and you need to ask yourself, how could this go wrong? Too many people are spending all their time saying, how can this go right? How can this go right? Now, this doesn't mean I'm trying to be negative. It's saying you're about to spend a bunch of time and energy and money probably on something. You want to ask yourself, what are all the ways this could go wrong? Now, you have to do it in a positive way. You have to, because you want to make sure that it's successful. So that's really, really important. So market research, marketing, super important on whatever you're doing. How much marketing will you have to do? What kind of marketing will you have to do? Back to the barrier of entry thing. One of your biggest decisions might be, I'm going to find a niche that's so strong I don't have to do any marketing, right? There's just such a big, wide need for something, which I love the most. Like I'm telling people, that's the first thing you should do is like look under every rock, try to find those things that other people are ignoring where there's a need. That's the best thing to do. But most businesses will need some marketing. We're going to talk about projections, and we're going to talk about plans B, C, and D. And that goes along with no plan survives contact with reality. You got to know what to do next. And you will do something next. Just be prepared for it.
This is the Throw the Boss podcast, Throw the Boss Out podcast. This is part of the TalkNorth.com podcast network. Mostly sports. This is our business show on the network. We are considering, because we have so much fun doing this, we're considering all kinds of podcasts for the future. If you'd ever like to sponsor this podcast, this network, or if you want to bring one of your own shows and get one of your own shows on the network and advertise there, we can make pretty much anything happen at TalkNorth.com. Send me an email at jsouhan47@gmail.com.
Thanks, Jim. I love that. Just the fact that we could have advertisers just really excites me.
Well, I mean,
It's like a new business venture.
Well, yeah, and if you're going to advertise, if you sell or market to businesses, what better way to reach other businesses than on a business podcast?
I couldn't have said it better myself. Won't repeat it. couldn't if I.
I'm used to
couldn't if I
dealing with
tried.
editors. I'm not comfortable with somebody leaving my words alone.
You're great. See, if I ever do these without Jim, we leave out all that stuff because I forget. I'm just not a professional.
No,
that way.
it's because you get excited about the content.
I do.
And that's good. So it's okay for somebody else to throw in the furniture, as we call it.
Jim is holding down the fort. That's what we would say. Keeping this thing a real business. Okay, so like before I launch into any of this stuff, do you have questions about?
I have so many questions, it would be counterproductive for me to ask them all because I'd ask like 50 questions. So I'm going to let you answer the questions as you see fit.
One of the Talk North advertisers, Tony,
Tony Hoagland,
who's from
Champlin.
Okay. He asked a question when I threw this out there saying we were going to talk about business plans. His question was, how often should somebody do one? Which basically exemplifies the reality that a business plan isn't just for when you go into business. You really should reanalyze your business on a regular basis. I don't know the answer to that for Tony. Tony's insurance.
Yep, State Farm.
I don't know that business all that well. So I think everybody should come to that conclusion themselves. But generally speaking, people do redo their business plan when things are either going very poorly or going very well. I would say when you make that decision, you're probably behind the curve. So my advice would be do a business plan when you wouldn't normally do a business plan. How's that for advice?
Interesting.
Like you're just walking down the street one day and somebody says the word business plan. You say, I really should just do one and start it tomorrow. I don't know how good of advice that is, but that's what I got for you, Tony. Other things that I suppose people want to know is how detailed should it be? I think we talked about that in one of our other podcasts and I believe I'm a believer in there's a point of diminishing return to anything. So what's the answer to how detailed or how vague one should be? I like to start with something I call segmentation. So every aspect of my business, brands, if I'm talking about products, services is types of customers, geographic locations, just spill out on a piece of paper every aspect of that service or that product that could be categorized and go and just go crazy with it. Think of any way you could. And then when you're looking at that list, the top 4 or 5 will stand out. That these would be the 4 or 5 that would have the most impact if I knew the most information about those things. And again, that'll be different for different businesses. And I always invite people, if you want to go to Throw the Boss Out Twitter or Facebook page and say, hey, here's the kind of business I have. You have any ideas of how you would segment your business plan? I'd have so much fun doing that. I would just love to help with that kind of a thing. So I outlined some of these before: product and service, the market, geographic locations if you're going to be if you're not going to be online, that kind of a thing. And then the projections. This is where it gets really interesting. How on earth do you know how much you're going to sell? How can anybody possibly know how much they're going to sell? The answer is you probably aren't going to know, but you can get darn close if you, again, break down the ways that you're going to get the money, or you break down who the competitors are. You're going to break down product demand. You can get all kinds of information online now. It's just unbelievable what you can get for free. And all you do is go to your browser and use whichever search engine you want. Now, if there's search engines out there that want to advertise on the show, we'd be happy to fill the blank in with the name.
Well, yes,
right.
we
could talk about your browser all the time, but for today's purposes, we're just simply going to say go to your browser and type in your question, and then just start digging. You have to be tenacious. You have to be super interested. Like, one of my favorite words having to do with human behavior is interest, because it will drive everything. It's at the heart of enthusiasm. It's at the heart of growth. It's at the heart of everything. If you're interested, you will find the information that you're looking for. So go online and get all kinds of information about what it is that you're selling or your service. I think one thing I could do is I could use our store in New Hope, our Rift City store, as an example of some of the stuff that I did as far as breaking things down. Do you think that'd be a good way to do it?
Yes, absolutely. And I love your shop, by the way. I've been there several times now.
And we appreciate you being there. I mean, when Jim Suhan walks into your guitar store,
nobody notices.
It's like a celebrity sighting. People are scattering, they're talking, they're whispering.
It's like a celebrity sighting without the celebrity.
Yeah, and I'm going, who's this guy?
Yeah, exactly. I get that when I come home.
Truth be told, I drop your name all the time. I tell people I know you. Everybody.
I'm sure that's doing wonders for your life.
It has gotten me into fancy restaurants and all kinds of things. So thank you for that, Jim. Okay, let's start with. So I was talking about the products and service research. When you're doing a retail thing, it's very, very easy to get brand information. It's very easy to talk to the brands themselves about demand. Google, I'm going to have to say Google, just because they have the best tool for doing this. They have keyword search tools out there, so you can go and find out how often people are looking for different things. You want to find out how wide is that? How many brands are there for what you're doing, right? And how do they break down? And who sells the most? And what's going to be the most expensive? And which of those brands do I have to? Is there a bigger buy-in for? Maybe that was one of the things that we had to look at. Is that if we added a new store, we're going to have to do a full buy-in on different things. And to just know everything you can, about that. The demographic of the people that use brands. Brands are very demographic driven, right? They start the questions about now, what am I selling? Who am I selling to? And those two things are very, very intertwined. The market research, where you're going to be, the location. Obviously, you're going to spend a lot more money to be in a busier traffic location. I've always held the idea, in our case, that I want to be in a medium traffic location for our retail store. Two reasons. We are a music store is a destination store. So people who love guitars are probably going to go a little bit further out of their way than somebody that's just buying, filling their tank up with gas or getting just
guitars are very personal, and people who love guitars do a lot of research.
Yep. So we get a little bit of reach there, but there is a limit to how far people will drive to do that. The other reason that I don't like to be in a super high traffic area is you literally have to hire more employees to simply handle the traffic that's not probably at a stage of buying. So if I'm in a busy foot traffic place, I'm just invariably going to have 20 or 30% more people coming in the shop that are just curious, that just want to know. They might buy later, so I don't mind that at all, but I know that there's kind of, again, a point of diminishing return to spending too much money to be in a busy traffic location for that product. That doesn't mean for all products. You have to think about that for what you're doing. If you have a service business, for example, you can be anywhere, right? If you're going to be driving to the customer, then it's just a matter of convenience and how close are my customers to you, and then you can get something in a much lower rent area. So you have to think about that. One of the things I did was I needed to know about the competition down here in the area. And there was so much information available, and it wasn't much. I didn't know. There's no way I could just go and look up, well, how many dollars in music gear does ABC Music Store sell, and CDEFG Music Store? How much are they doing? I didn't know, but it was important for me to know what the market share was that was being served. So I took some of the information from our St. Cloud area and extrapolated, what the population was, how much we're doing in sales. Again, it's just, you can look at it a number of different ways. Slice and dice is what I say. Just to break it down every way you possibly can. And the real stuff will just pop up and you'll say, okay, that's going to be really, really important. So I didn't know everything about all the stores down here, but I knew a little bit about every store down here. And in some cases, I could look up how many employees do they have. In other cases, I did know what volume they did because somebody might have said something, or somebody might have known that number from some, number. Or maybe I've even talked to one of the owners at one time, and we've had a frank conversation about that. So I knew that if you have a certain amount of employees, square footage, right? Square footage of a store will tell you approximately what the rent is. You can do a quick little business plan on each one of those and say, well, they have to be doing at least this much to be able to cover those costs, the employee costs and all that. So I literally went to every music store in the area and assessed how many square feet they had. I'd look on their website, see how many employees they had. I would look at the brands that they carry because that might give you a lot of indication about what kind of money they spend. There's a lot of brands that say, hey, the minimum buy-in is this much. So I think to myself, well, you're going to have to sell at least this much of that brand to make that work. So I had this big messy spreadsheet that got pared down to, here's my market and here's the number of people that I can sell to, and here is basically the market cap. So then you look at that in reverse and you say, all right, so if I have that many millions of dollars being sold already, and I know I have this many people in that area, how much is that per person? And then I take that number and I go, let me compare that to St. Cloud. And so if the St. Cloud number is lower, then I say, well, is the income, different there? Guess what? I can find that out. I can just look that up. And if all of a sudden that number for my St. Cloud area matches the number for down here, and it makes sense from a ratio, the same ratio in the income, then I know I'm getting really close and I have good numbers, right? So you make your decisions as far as that goes. I actually, just a little hint, if you're trying to figure out the square footage of your competitors, counting the ceiling tiles.
Ah, very smart.
Yeah, because the first time I was like walking it off, right? And I thought they're going to catch on to this. I'm like actually stepping. I'm trying to be really inconspicuous and step off the square footage and hope that every one of my steps really is 3 feet. And then it occurred to me that in most cases they have ceiling tiles, and you can tell if it's a 12-inch or 18-inch or a 24-inch.
Oh, man, that's smart.
Ceiling tile, and then you just go.
This is like an episode of Sherlock Holmes.
It's fun. See, that's the thing and that's what I'm telling you. You got to want to be able to do those things. You just got to dig in and enjoy those things whenever you can. So I talked in one of the shows about this concept of triangulation. I don't know if that's the right mathematical term for what I'm doing, but if I know the 3 of these stores, I know how many employees they have, and one of those plus another one, I know the volume they do, and I know the square footage of all of them. You put that in a spreadsheet, and you just do a little bit of math, and you can almost tell to a T. We hired somebody from one of the stores that I was comparing to, and I'd forgotten I'd done all this research. And one day we were standing there, and I was looking at him, and this light bulb went on. And I said, "Do you mind me asking how much volume that store does?" And I said, "What? Wait, I'm going to guess it's about $4.1 million or something like that." And he looks at me with this crazy stare. He goes, 3.9. I said, yeah, close enough. I'm off by a little bit. So, and I had I did that 100% just based on, employees, store size, putting all those little pieces together. Wow. And you can too. You can do it. You just have to be, like I said, tenacious and interested. The other thing you have to do in all these is, because you know that the data is not going to be 100% accurate, you have to do low and high, right? So you have to say, what if I'm off this way, or what if I'm off the other way? And then you always plan for the worst, obviously. So when you're doing your budgets, when you're doing your plans, when you're figuring out how much you can live with or live without, I guess, you just have to say, what if all my numbers are wrong and skewed to the low side? And the good news is if you say, I can make that happen, then you got a good business plan. And you're encouraged and you're enthusiastic. Projections, that again, you just have to break things down. Break it down by geography. How much will I sell here? How much will I sell there? Break it down by brands. Again, when you can find the demand for a brand in an area, and you can look at what the other competition, who you're competing against, you can break it down. You can figure it out. So I do my numbers this way, then I do them this way, and I do them this way. The other thing you break it down by month. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Break it down individually by month. Don't try to do it years at a time because you'll be wrong. Break it down. I don't see the point in breaking it down to weeks, but maybe if your product or service, if that's important, you do that. But again, we go back to that first sheet that I told you, is you've broken up all these segments. You've just thought of every single aspect that could be, categorized in there, and you keep checking back. And you're like, oh, here's where that's going to come into play. And you just keep going. Get any questions? I need questions. I just need some.
I
I'm
just want to
talking.
talk. I just want to talk about guitars. So,
What do you want to know about guitars relative to segmentation and breaking down the business plan?
Well, here's what I hope is an interesting question. Obviously, you have the big behemoth guitar shops, and then you have kind of almost mom and pop places will pop up, and they might specialize in vintage or repairs. They might just have. There's a place over in St. Paul that it seems to be a mom and pop storefront, and they have a lot of used stuff. So we know that one of the big companies either has or is about to go bankrupt. I think they already have gone bankrupt. And I see the little shops, and they just seem to be struggling by. What's the right size for that business?
I'd say I haven't figured that out yet. I'd say that's when everything got said and done. The result of all my business plans is I was close, but I overestimated. There's one aspect I overestimated: how quickly we could build confidence. Remember in the sales things we talked about, comfort. Well, comfort and confidence; those are the same thing essentially. We had as much traffic as I expected. So people coming in the door, I was almost right on. Dollars, I was off by quite a bit the first 2 months.
For better or worse?
For worse. So we had to analyze that. And it was, people were testing us. They were buying a set of strings. They were buying little stuff. And then about 2 months in, it just started to incline. And I had the guys pay really close attention to the repeat customers. We could kind of see that in our system, but when it's that small of numbers, the data is a little bit unreliable. So I was just asking the guys to be really, paying a close attention to people that were repeat buyers. And that was what was happening. People were they were building confidence. They knew we were going to still be there. They had a chance to get comfortable with the salespeople that were there. And then things started to grow. And it's probably taken 6 months, but I'd say we're about where we expected to be maybe a few months ago.
Interesting.
So I don't know the answer to what's the right size. It's something I'm thinking about all the time. It's as I said, it's the most difficult of the three businesses I have. If we look at the barriers to entry and demand and things like that, the other two are more. I would say go start those other businesses. Like go compete with me in direct mail and on fishing tackle, as opposed to music. Not because I don't want you to compete with me on music. I'm just saying you're going to beat.
It's a tough business.
Yeah, it really is. It's very, very. It's highly competitive. The margins are not great, but it's fun, and that's exactly why the margins aren't great and the competition is high. Because most people, the satisfaction they get out of it is to be around guitars all the time. Right. So there's just a lot of people that do that. But think about that. That's why I'm telling you, if you want to, if I was going to give advice to anybody, go find the most boring business you've ever found in your life that there's a big need, and have fun with the business side of it as opposed to having fun with the content. Now, I don't mean to say that I don't like the music business. I love it. I really do. There's things of every business that are frustrating, but I really love it. But that's the one that I spend the most time trying to figure that out. I would say right now, I feel like having more stores, this is going to sound crazy. I think that having more stores is going to be important to us.
Really?
I really think that I'm a contrarian there. I think that people are going to start buying in stores again. I think it's going to come back to doing that. It's not going to be true with toilet paper and all this other stuff, right? And you can buy guitars on Amazon. Trust me, I know that. But it's a tactile thing where people like the feel of things and they like the sound of it. Even an amp, you could say, well, it's just a box, and if I play one place, it's going to sound the same. That's probably true. But if you can go in and actually try it right in a store, it's going to have an impact. And the other thing about our business that kills every one of us is the shipping.
Right.
I mean, the shipping is now a major portion of what comes out of your profit, because try to charge somebody for shipping for anything online,
right,
and your sales will drop to just about nothing.
Yeah.
So,
and I think with guitars, I mean, if I play a guitar in a shop and it just feels right, I'm going to be more likely to buy it in shop than go online and buy it. If there's something about it that grabs me and I feel like I got a good one here.
Yeah, and they're like jeans. We'd say they're like blue jeans, right?
Yeah.
You try on 10 blue jeans in the store, and this one fits great, and these other ones don't fit great.
Yep.
If you're me, it's like the one fits great and the other 9 don't. But that's just the story of my life buying blue jeans. I'm not sure how it is.
Sad
with
story.
Guitars, right? It is a sad story. Getting sadder by the year, Jim. Getting sadder by the year. So, I'm trying to think of other things that people are going to be really interested in. You can do all the other stuff. You can get your executive summary together. All of that is fun. Are you going to go and get? Are you going to actually go and get financial, partners in your business? That's a question. If that's true, then some of this other stuff is really going to be important because you have to sell the idea to those people. I have had business partners in the past, and I've actually had good business partners in the past. They're great people, great business people. But I am the first to admit I'm the worst business partner you could ever have just because of how I want to do things. And that I've said before, freedom's the most important thing to me. And I just want to do what I want to do. And so business partners, and I would rather go and find the financing myself somehow if it needs financing, or to just figure it out myself, as opposed to having an investor or something. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it definitely plays into this.
I met with an investor, potential investor, and a friend of a friend, and he basically said, "You don't want me around." He said, "I could give you some money and it might work out, but if I give you money, I'm going to be on your butt every day, and I'm going to drive you crazy, and you're going to hate your life." And I said, "Thank you," and I left.
I always say, the only time in business when having a business partner is good is when things are going just all right. When things go great and you have a business partner, that's when some of the trouble starts. Mm-hmm. And if things start going bad and you have a business partner, that's when it gets bad. And I take full responsibility for that. I'm not blaming anybody for that. But that's something you have to think about. How are you going to pay yourself? That's one thing that people forget when they do their business plan. What's your pay going to be? Maybe other people actually think too much about that. Maybe they're thinking too much about, well, I had a job and I was making this much money, so I need to make that much money to, make this thing work. So, I'm not really sure how I would do it, but I would say I'll probably stay solo.
It's probably safest for both of us.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's safe for everybody around me. My wife would tell you that too. So, I think we're going to move on to, let's wrap this up. Say thank you to everybody for joining us for the Throw the Boss Out podcast. Jim?
Enjoyed it as always. And again, if you'd like to advertise with the program or the network, email me, jsouhan@47@gmail.com. And we always appreciate our listeners. This is a labor of love, and we're having a blast doing it.
Over and out.